This podcast is powered by As Always Entertainment. If you enjoy this content, consider becoming a patron over on patreon.com/asalways. Other than to support this show for just $1 a month or more, you get access to over 50 exclusive episodes of the Kill Connor Clubhouse podcast that release every week the Kill Connor Club podcast isn't on. You also get a week's early access to the Spoilercast show, The Cinema Room, and plenty of cool perks such as being part of polls for future videos on our channels, as well as other early access material. With that said, please enjoy the podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Cinema Room podcast, the Spoilercast podcast, where we talk about movies, video games, television shows, break it down with full spoilers. Today we're talking about Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, a Patreon-decided film, voted on the polls. So, spoilers ahead for The Dark Knight if for some reason, after 10 plus years, you haven't seen this incredible film. Anyways, I'm one of your hosts, Tyler, joined as always by James. Hello, how's it going, my friend?
As always, how's it going?
Yeah, good, man.
Great.
Good, you know.
I'm happy to be
alive. Here. I'm alive. Anyway,
okay. Yeah,
sounds like I'm not happy to be here. Oh, well, I mean, I'm alive, so that's about it. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about The Dark Knight, one of, the all-time great films of our time, which is exciting. But as well, of course, we have to thank our Patreon producers for making things like the Cinema Room happen at all. So that is King Richard III, Ikraik, Seth, and Josh Devillier. But of course, we have all of our sweet vintage lads over at patreon.com/as always to thank. If you like what you're hearing here and you would like to hear this podcast and more, head over to patreon.com/as always, where you get the exclusive Kill Connor Clubhouse podcast on Patreon. And you also get a week's early access to the Cinema Room podcast, this podcast. So if you're listening on iTunes or YouTube to this spoilercast, you could have got this a week ago for just $1 a month on patreon.com/as always.
What the fuck are you doing?
Exactly right. Now, to thank a few of those sweet vintage lads that are helping power this podcast, we have King Richard III, Ikraik, Seth, Bullsack47, Josh Devillier, Damian, Billy the Team Tynamite Captain Robertson, Tman or Travis, Casey Wood, Tony the Tarbiter's Pasty, Denis, Adam Sundling, Alfie Rowsell, Jamie the Gamer, Smexy Dork, Lumistrad, Mario5380, Hook Still Holds Up, Viridian, Pink Flame 313, ArunWyn, Ollie The Dane, Fuck Cuck, Nawaf M, Brendon or BQ Overlord, Ravjai, Julie, Prudhvi Muvva, Oscar, Benedict Parker Returns, James and Lad, Connor Durose Bully in the Alley, Zahir, Jean, Zeke Collins, Son of a Bitch, Ogeaidogo, Lauren is here too, God Dammit Glenn, Furious Coco, the ACMJS, Delta R. Rodriguez, Kyle, S. Jaws, Kyle Marvel, Marcus Blackburn, Emil Katborg, Joshua Mora, David Bindis, Ginko Swag, Kima Sabe, Gamer, Yazen, Joe the Sexy Boi Smith, Elstico91, Joe A.K.A FoundedScarab, HButs12, I Got Lumbago, The Real Jaw Raptor, Omar Karasagi, Alfie Rodbert, Brian Ford, Shields, Fishy, Andrew Martinez, Lewis, The Gamer McLean. Thank you, sweet vintage. Let's talk about this podcast. The list is just so fucking long.
It also feels longer when you read it and then you end Clubhouse and then you start Cinema Room and then you read the list again. And
back to back.
It's
back
horrible,
to back.
But thank you all so much. Don't stop giving us money.
Yeah, if anything, more people, please.
Yeah, I'd love it if that list were longer.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love that too. Yeah. So The Dark Knight, James, by Christopher Nolan, one of the greatest directors of our time, if not arguably the greatest director of our time. I thought we'd do it a bit differently, because usually we'll break down the movie bit by bit, and go through everything. I'd like to do that, but I'd like to do that as the last thing we do. Let's talk about just the movie overall, have this discussion about the film. Because a film like this, its impact on cinema, on everything that surrounded it with Heath Ledger, on the performances, on Batman overall, and as a story. This movie is an important film in superhero films, so I feel like spending most of our time talking about that would be good. And then, of course, a lot of people have their own questions and comments they want our opinions on when it comes to that. So I thought we could start with that, and before we go into the real deeper breakdowns of each sort of scene or section of the film. Mm-hmm. If that's cool with you. I'm assuming it is. Yeah. I'm not really asking. I'm just letting you know anyway. But
no, that's not okay. I'm not letting this happen. This podcast will go on no longer until you change that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I've decided to not change it. So thanks for listening to the Cinema Room podcast. All right. No, but The Dark Knight, overall, I'm not going to say overall what do you think, do you like it? We both love the movie, obviously. I guess, to me, 11 years later, do you think The Dark Knight... where do you put The Dark Knight of all-time superhero movies? In the MCU, everything. Everything. And do you think it changed superhero movies forever?
I put The Dark Knight second, just under Hook, which obviously
you know
still
what?
holds up the most.
You know what? I don't like that joke. All right, I'm gonna be real with you. I don't like that, and I'm fucking mad. I'm a professional, so I'm not gonna yell and scream because I would never do that. I'm not that sort of guy.
No, definitely not.
I'm gonna sit here and be professional about this, but I'm fucking furious about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. Okay. As a professional film connoisseur, I'm gonna.
For the respect to the art of cinema,
yeah,
I'm not gonna get mad and scream.
No.
Even though I should, but I wouldn't do that. I'm not that sort of guy.
No,
Positive energy, you got it.
In terms of where do I place it in terms of superhero movies? It's one of those movies that every time I know how great it is, but every time I watch it, it's almost like I forgot how great it was, and I'm blown away by it again. I'm like, wow, I knew it was good, but like this is it's fucking brilliant. It probably is my top, my favorite superhero movie because I think it's just so fucking good. Every moment is great. It's I don't know, if you'd have asked me before I'd rewatched it, where would I put it? Maybe I'd have given you a different answer. And maybe I should have thought about that before I watched it so I could give you that different answer, but I didn't. So this is a useless segue. But I think it is my favorite superhero movie, and I think there's good reason why it is.
I agree. I think it's the best superhero movie ever made.
Mm-hmm.
Animated, live action, anything. I think it's not just the story, because I think the story is the best Batman story of all time, and I think people miss that. I think a lot of people overlook a lot and focus on Heath Ledger as the Joker, rightfully so in a lot of ways, because it's probably it's the best performance of the movie. It's also one of the most incredible performances, full stop, in anything. And there's questions about who's overrated, who's the best. It's not overrated. It is genuinely, in my opinion, one of the greatest acting performances of all time.
That's brilliant.
I can't. When I think about comparing just to any acting I've ever watched in any movie, it's the one that'll always come to my head as like, I'll always think of it.
Mm-hmm.
I will always think, wow. When I'm like, when you think of great acting moments and great performances, what do you think? That's probably one of the first three things that come to my head.
Yeah.
You know? And it's not because he died, or it's because rightfully that's how good the performance was. But that in some ways overshadows the other masterpiece things this film does, which includes the writing of Batman. It includes Christian Bale's amazing portrayal of Batman and Bruce Wayne. I think he's the best Batman, easily. I think he's the best Bruce Wayne. It's also the best written Batman Bruce Wayne, in my mind, for a lot of reasons, but also for the way the whole universe is sort of constructed overall as well. Because The Dark Knight is... The whole Dark Knight trilogy is done in such a way that no other superhero film has ever done, nor been able to replicate since. And that is being the most real of any superhero sort of stories in cinema. Where it's like, what would it be like in real life if this was a real place and this was a real superhero? What would really it be like? Movies try to do it, but in the MCU there's fucking space and magic, and you know what I mean? There's no magic in this. There's no real mystical things. There's just, what would it be really like? And even like the mystical things, like in Batman Begins, you have the Ra's al Ghul stuff, but all it is hallucinogenic drugs that cause certain things. It's all set in the most real, grounded, dark sort of, not rogue dark, but like dark sort of storyline, and the way they portray everything in that universe is so believable, and the actors are like, Christian Bale is one of the best actors on earth.
He is great. Yeah.
He's in everything he's in. And he's underrated in Batman. He's so underrated. Criminally underrated as Batman to me. And most people think he's the best Batman. I think most people think he's the best Batman, and that's still underrating him. Because people don't talk about it enough. Because it's not just, he's the best Batman, but he's by far the best Batman. By far.
How could he not be? Because every other on-screen portrayal of Batman has been garbage.
But even the animated ones, I'm comparing to animated as well.
I don't know. Kevin Conroy's Batman is brilliant. I
agree.
I think it depends how you look
I
at
agree.
it.
I'm not saying he's not, but to me that's partly also a longevity thing more than anything. Like in what Christian Bale did in
like
3
Kevin
movies.
Conroy's been in so many Batman stories at this point.
That's my point. But
it's impossible for him not to have that status, I guess.
Yeah.
Christian Bale, obviously. Yeah, Christian Bale's
in 3 movies. Christian Bale,
incredible. And I think people do. A lot of people will always say, like, a lot of people get hung up on the voice, the Batman voice, because they're like, oh, it sounds fucking silly. Which I get, it kind of does sometimes, especially in that scene in The Dark Knight when he's talking to Lucius Fox and he's doing the Batman voice, and Lucius knows it's Bruce. And they're the only 2 people there, and it's really strange. But
I don't know what you're talking about. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. I just, for me, I think it's totally fine. But I don't think the voice is ridiculous. I think you're ridiculous for thinking that.
Well, because there's been so many jokes done with it as well as Free Run for Justice, which sticks in my mind. Whenever I hear it, it does sound a little bit ridiculous to me.
Hey, I am not a joke. This is super serious. Don't just pass it off like it's a fucking joke, okay? Seriously.
I love that voice. It's so fucking stupid. It sounds like him,
I don't know
but
what you're
also
talking.
doesn't.
Batman, get out of here, man. I'm so sorry about. Get out of here, man. Jesus Christ! I put you away last year. That you don't get to be on the mic anymore. You're done. You're finished.
Fuck's sake.
Fucking hell. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that. Batman's just, hanging out in the closet.
Yeah, it's fine.
At least it wasn't the Tynamite, so, there's better,
Jesus Christ. Yeah, but I think that Christian Bale's performance is brilliant in everywhere. Because I tried this time to pay a lot of attention to things that maybe I didn't before. Like, so, you're talking about Heath Ledger's performance. It's so difficult to see him in, like, there's a lot of movies where you see someone doing a great performance, you can still see the actor through it. It's so difficult to see Heath Ledger, the actor, in that, like, he's portrayed. It feels like it's real, like it's such a well done performance as the Joker. It's so convincing and just feels like he's just become a different person. It's so brilliantly done, and I think that Christian Bale also does a great performance as Bruce Wayne and Batman in the way that. It's also the writing of it is great as well, but the way that it's done right. Like a lot of times they can get Bruce Wayne and Batman mixed up, where they're like, oh, it's, he's Bruce Wayne, and then he puts on the mask, and he's Batman, but there's so much nuance to Batman as a character, and it's like, Batman is truly who Bruce Wayne is, and Bruce Wayne is this, the mask that he puts on, and it's done so well in the Dark Knight trilogy, but it's done, obviously, in the Dark Knight, it's done so well, and I think Christian Bale's performance helps that as well, in the way that he plays both characters, depending on who he's with, if he's with Alfred or when he's got the mask on, or when he's being Bruce Wayne at a party or something, like it's all done so well, and I think his performance is a huge part of what makes it so convincing and so well done in The Dark Knight.
It's everyone's performances that make it real, right? Like it's not just Christopher Nolan deserves so much credit for the way he films movies and the way he structures his stories and the way he builds stakes so well. But but he also knows how to cast people. Jesus, look at the fucking cast he got. Christian Bale, one of the best actors working today, top 3 working today. Heath Ledger, one of the greatest ever for his short-lived career. Gary fucking Oldman is in this. Gary Oldman, again, top 5 best actors working today. You have Michael Caine and Morgan Freeman.
It's mental.
And those are the first 5 build. Those are the first 5 build people. You have so many people. Maggie fucking Gyllenhaal's in it. Cillian Murphy. Aaron Eckhart. You've got some of the best actors, not only of all time in like Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine. Like you have, working today like Christian Bale and Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman is like and Christian Bale, every time they play anyone, they're like different people. They become the characters. It's ridiculous, and it's having people like that in a superhero movie. You know, they make it real. They make it real drama.
And I think it's difficult as well.
Real characters.
Because after Christopher Nolan's made this movie and he's made this trilogy, I don't think it's really possible to do that again. Because you've got movies that were great, like Spider-Man 2, and like, you know, now you've got Tom Holland's version and stuff like that. And you can do that with characters like superheroes that have different iterations through the years. But Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, to me, solidifies to me personally, the only on-screen Batman that is worth watching. I don't feel like it's really possible to do again, from the writing to, like, you know, the tone, the structure, and the cast. Is how the fuck do you do that again and somehow make
I literally have no
Batman
interest in
movie.
ever seeing another Batman again, unless Christopher Nolan makes another, like, in the universe, because obviously you can't do another Batman one, but like, I have no interest in it. Because it's done. They've done it.
It's impossible.
It's like
you can't outdo the casting. Like, it's perfect casting. How do you do that again? I don't know why they
perfect structure, perfect universe, perfect storytelling. It's a masterpiece of a trilogy to me. Like, there's obviously, this is the best movie of the three. No doubt about it. This is by far the best movie of the three. But Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises are amazing movies. Yeah, they have their faults. This movie barely has any, but it's just like, it's ridiculous. It's like you try it a million times, right? Like, you're trying to get it right. They make so many renditions of Batman. They get so many directors to try it out. It's like, no, you've done it. You've now done it. That's what we're looking for. There's no point. There's no point ever doing it again. You've done it.
No. You've
nailed it. Give up. And then obviously they come back, and the next Batman was Ben Affleck in this. I don't know what the fuck those movies were, but you know, there's no surprise that the next Batman was not going to be what we, you know, it's just, doesn't matter. I've no interest. Like, I'm going to watch any Batman movie that comes out. It's the only DC product I'll watch, but I don't actually need it. I don't care if they never make another one. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
It's tough because obviously you've got, like, as good as Spider-Man 2 was, I think it's one of my favourite superhero movies. It doesn't do the same that The Dark Knight does, where it, to me, solidified this is Spider-Man, or, like, you know, like it does with, like, this is Batman, and these are the characters that, like, you know, whenever if say I was reading this is a weird example, but imagine I was reading a novel that was Batman. The characters I would imagine in my head would probably be the characters from The Dark Knight. Like, I would imagine Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon, or Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne. Like, that feels like those are the characters. So when you try to recast them, it just doesn't feel right, because I know what those characters are meant to look like, because it's already done so well in this trilogy. And so, you know, it's pretty much impossible to replicate, I think.
Yeah, and remember when they was trying to do this DC universe, and they wanted Christian Bale back. They offered him Robert Downey Jr. money to keep him on. Like, I think it was like $50 million each movie if he did Batman vs Superman. And the difference that alone would have made to the whole vibe of the film, like, you would have had to have made the films differently the way you ended up making them. Even with Zack Snyder as director, he couldn't have fucked it up. Obviously, he would have still managed to make the movie suck. But it couldn't have been as bad, in the sense of, you couldn't make the same Batman that was in Batman vs Superman that fucking killed people. You couldn't have Christian Bale play a Batman that did that. You would have had to have been like, okay, this is this Batman. How would he be in this situation? It would have been a whole different thing. There's no choice to it. And, like, I would have loved to have seen it, but thankfully, I'm glad he turned it all down. Purely of the fact of, like, you know, you saw how it turned out disastrously, and that way it kind of would have, in part, I'm sure, ruined the Dark Knight stuff. But, you know, I remember at the time thinking, just please come back, Christian, please come back. I don't want to see anyone else play Batman. Yeah. I don't need to see anyone else play Batman. Yeah.
I think it's that there's with Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man, I feel like that's a character that's, like, become synonymous with the actor. I don't think I could.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe not quite to the same degree, maybe, but I couldn't imagine.
I think to the same degree. Yeah, I agree. I think to the same degree,
Stark, because he is Tony Stark. Like, Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark.
It's like Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool. Let's be real. No one else can play Deadpool. No one. And I don't think anyone else can play Tony Stark. Not for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe in like 20 years, 30 years, you do Iron Man again, and it's Tony Stark again. Only way. Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds is Deadpool. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine to me.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? Like, there are people that are synonymous, and I think Christian Bale I think Christian Bale is more impressive because he did it in 3 movies. Hugh Jackman has done 9 portrayals. Robert Downey Jr. has done 10 portrayals. Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds did it in 2 movies, but he is Deadpool. You know what I mean? Like, to be fair, like, there was no other choice for him. There's no one else. It's just that's who he is. Everything Ryan Reynolds does, Ryan Reynolds has been playing Deadpool in every movie he's ever done forever. Like, that's just kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, so as much as there's only 2 Deadpool movies, I'm like, I know, but every Ryan Reynolds movie is him playing Deadpool because he is Deadpool. It's just bizarre.
Yeah. It is really strange.
It is bizarre. That's, rare exception, but yeah, that's how I feel. That's how I feel. And it's not that they can't make more Batman and have other people play Batman. They can, but it's just, it'll never be what it was with Christian Bale. Yeah. Maybe in some ways they'll find better ways, in new ways, but, you know, it'll never be that way again.
Yeah.
But obviously, again, we praise Christian Bale, and I will break down the reasons why. Obviously, I think it's a tremendous Batman movie and the best Bruce Wayne, because I remember people have argued with me. They're like, well, the way people were like, he's not a good Bruce Wayne. I remember, I don't know who I was arguing with about this, but it was like probably years ago. But it was like during the time we've been doing podcasts and stuff, like someone said to me, like, I just didn't like him as Bruce. He was a great Batman, but not a good Bruce Wayne. Like, he was being, and they bring up the restaurant scene in The Dark Knight, and I'm like, that is the best Bruce Wayne scene of all time. Of all time, that's the best Bruce Wayne scene, because people don't understand that Bruce Wayne isn't real. He's not a real person. He is Bruce is Batman. Bruce Wayne is just a character that he plays to the public. You know, like that scene in the restaurant where he pulls up 2 chairs and he goes, "Oh, it's like, I'm not sure if Harvey Dent goes, I'm not sure if they'll let us put tables together." He's like, "Oh, they should. I own the place." And then he puts his date, and he sits with Harvey and Rachel. And he's talking about, you know, how he thinks, well, I think Batman, you know, is... and he was having not an argument, but like having a discussion about the Batman. Harvey's like, I think the Batman's great and what he does, and he's helped this, and that. And it's like, don't you think... And Bruce is sitting there going, don't you think he's taking matters into his own hands? And, you know, he was kind of talking bad about Batman in his disagreements with Batman and who he is. And then he would... you know, talk a lot of shit, and he's like, I'll throw a party for you, blah, 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 blah. And I remember people talking to me like, oh, what a dick, he's just an arsehole. I'm like, yeah, because Bruce Wayne's not real, he's playing an act. And one of the great all-time Bruce moments that isn't in this universe is in the animated series Batman Beyond, where, like, old man Bruce was, like, getting... I forget, something to do with the Joker, and like there were voices in his head, and Joker put voices in his head or something, and like to tell him to do stuff, and it was, and the current Batman, I forget the name of the guy that's Batman at this point when Bruce is really old. He goes, "How did you know it was the Joker and not yourself talking in your own head?" He goes, "Well, the voice kept calling me Bruce, and I don't call myself Bruce in my head." You know, it's like, yeah, because he's not Bruce. He is Batman. Batman, who is who he really is. That's who he really is. You know, Bruce is all but a facade. And that you see that in this movie so many times, of like every time he's out in the public playing Bruce. It's way more than in the first movie, because in the first movie Bruce was really lost, and every time you see him, like, he's really trying to find his way. He's dealing with a lot, and so it's a lot of development of Bruce becoming Batman, whereas this, you see he is Batman. That's who he is. And he's finally found out who Bruce needs to be, which is just a character. He doesn't need to be Bruce Wayne. He needs to be Batman, and Bruce is just for public appearances, to do these funny speeches and kind of, you know, do what he has to do for the public to believe Bruce Wayne exists. He's a person. Whereas, you know, he's actually really just Batman. And I think this is the best portrayal of that in any movie was in this one. They didn't need to do it a lot. They did, and this is the thing, they don't need to do it a lot just because you get a lot of it in other movies or other portrayals. Christopher Nolan nails his scenes and sequences so well You don't need to do it a million times. You don't have to have a million Bruce Wayne scenes of him being the facade. He did like 2-3 amazing scenes with Bruce, and that's all you needed. That's all you needed. Everything else is he's Batman, you know? But it's sometimes less is more, and this movie to me nails less is more. Because when you break down scene by scene, there's not that many scenes with each character. Like, there's a lot of Joker scenes. There's as many Joker scenes as there are Batman scenes. You know? But they less is more. Less is more.
Yeah, I agree.
Less is more.
Yeah.
We can get into the breakdown, but we have some Patreon questions, thoughts, comments from people. And we'll get to break these down. Cody Masters said, "Hot take, lads. Never in the history of cinema has a film's legacy owed so much to one specific performance than The Dark Knight. Its relevance is 95% due to Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker, because it's not a very good Batman movie."
Okay. Well, we just talked about that, really, didn't we?
Yeah.
Explain why that's not the case at all.
Yeah. Obviously, people talk. We said that people talk about it, like Heath Ledger and stuff, and that in some ways overshadows other things. But without Heath Ledger dying, or even his performance being as good, even if it's just a little, not quite that good, this is still an amazing movie. I think it still would have. I think it still would be the best superhero movie of all time. Obviously, Heath Ledger's performance is probably the biggest part of it. I don't disagree with it being probably the biggest part of its legacy. But if it was only Heath Ledger's performance that was good and everything else wasn't good, it wouldn't have the legacy. And it's not 95% due to it. It is a tremendous Batman movie. It's a tremendous film, full stop. And it just has a legacy of Heath Ledger's performance, which is amazing. But it also has a legacy of being an amazing film, Batman movie as well, I think. I think you agree.
No, I agree. I think it's one of the greatest Batman stories. I think because Christopher Nolan clearly understood Batman. You can tell from every scene it nails.
And so did Christian Bale.
What Batman is, and Christian Bale gets it as well. The whole movie.
And the big thing is there's a lot of freedom.
Batman. It's really well done.
If you hear stories about the set of The Dark Knight, these guys had so much freedom to do whatever they wanted. Like, they would ask, Christian Nolan would ask them, they'd be like, "Oh, so what do you think of this character? Should he do this?" And Christopher Nolan would be like, "I don't know. What do you think?" Like, that's what Christopher Nolan is like. He's not a guy that's like, "This is my vision. This is the only way it's happening. You guys have to nail my vision." He goes, "Well, this is the story. What do you think the Joker would do? What do you think Batman would do in this scene?" You know what I mean? He would ask the actors who are playing these characters what they think they would do in the scene. The story's his story. The way he obviously films it is the way he films it. But, like, in terms of the performances, these guys had freedom. So it's as much as Christopher Nolan got the Joker and got Batman, he got people that saw these characters the way he saw them. There's a reason he picked Heath Ledger out of everyone when everyone couldn't believe Heath Ledger got hired. So they're like, "What the fuck? This guy? Oh my god." And there's a reason he picked Christian Bale, because these guys saw Batman the way he saw them, and then he let them be that. You know, Batman and the Joker's performance is as much due to Christian Bale and Heath Ledger as it is to the director. As much as the director deserves credit for it, it's so much to do with the actors.
Yeah, and it's done incredibly well. Like, they nail the characters, they nail the story. It feels like, and it's not like one of those typical comic book movies where they're basically taking the best bits from the comics and adapting it. There's obviously bits and pieces of that, because you can tell they obviously cared about the source material. But this is very clearly a unique Batman story that takes themes and pieces from the comics that make it up, but it's clearly Christopher Nolan's own story. It's very unique in that way, but it does everything so right. It hits the right sort of moments that you have to have in a Batman Joker story. It gets everything right, but it takes them to new places and does new things with them. And obviously the performance helps with that as well. But I think that's so good. You don't see that a lot in comic book movies, especially in the MCU. It's like, although they tell relatively unique stories, it's normally patchwork from, like, comic books. They'll be like, "Oh, I like this character, he can do this," or "I like this little bit of story, this can go here," and then they sort of craft it and then sort of do their own little thing with it. Whereas The Dark Knight, I feel, is its own unique Batman story, but it still nails everything that makes those characters what they are, and when they come together, what those confrontations are like, that the comics gets right. And I think the movie does that as well. I think that's why it's such a good Batman story.
I completely agree. Completely agree. There was... Oh, yeah, so the Jackal says, we know The Dark Knight is undoubtedly one of the best superhero movies ever, but I have a hypothetical. So basically, I've always been of the mind that had this movie not had Heath Ledger's incredibly compelling and engaging performance, but instead another actor or villain in its place, that the film would be significantly less acclaimed. Would you agree it is Ledger that single-handedly lifts this film? I've never found Bale's performance of Bruce Wayne to be groundbreaking. Again, I wouldn't even say Christian Bale is groundbreaking. I just think it was the best one. I think he nailed it, but he didn't do it over the top. Like he didn't like go, but because Batman and Bruce Wayne isn't like a character like the Joker that has the ability to be as compelling.
It's just done exactly right. I think Christian Bale's performance is done exactly right because it feels like Bruce Wayne Batman to me. That's what it feels like to me when I watch him in the role. Yeah. So.
Plus, I think as well with Heath went above and beyond what anyone would expect.
Yeah.
That the standard of to be the Joker now is a level that before him it wasn't even like nothing. Nothing was even close to that expectation. Whereas now it's like, if you can't do Heath Ledger, what's the point?
Yeah.
You know, and like look at what they did the last Joker performance in Suicide Squad. Like it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Terrible. Imagine as an actor though, getting offered the role of the Joker. That would be terrifying. I would be like, no, I'm not doing it. I don't think it'd be worth it because either you get it right and you do Heath Ledger, or you fuck it up and that's what you're remembered for. So,
and you've got Joaquin Phoenix as one coming up, and that's one of the best casts. Like when I thought about Heath Ledger, I'm like, Joaquin Phoenix is he can do Heath Ledger Joker, but he can do Heath Ledger Joker. That's like, yeah, that's the Joker we want to see. This really seriously dark, fucked up Joker, but in his own way. That's like enough like Heath Ledger's Joker that people want to see, but different enough that he's not just trying to copy Heath Ledger. Whereas like when they hired Jared Leto, you're like, where are they going with this? And people, I'm like, yeah, I mean, he could. I was interested because I'm like, I wonder what Jared Leto will do. He's a great actor. What will he do with it? And then you see him like, oh no, that's not the Joker, is it?
No, it's
so
just
bizarre.
Terrible. It's just terrible.
So
it's nothing like Heath Ledger. It's nothing like Mark Hamill. Like, what the fuck?
It's not even like the Joker in terms of source material either. Like, it's just doesn't make sense. It's not the character.
It was terrible. It was just it's a guy with makeup on, but like he doesn't have the same motivations or respond to anything the way the Joker would. It's not that character. You've just made a new character with the same name. It's not well done at all.
Yeah, for sure.
It was very bad.
But would we agree that Ledger single-handedly lifts this film? I don't think he single-handedly lifts the film, but I think Ledger lifts the film.
Yeah.
Significantly.
Yeah.
I think his death is also a part of why it lifts the film, because the thing with it, and it's not in the sense of he died, let's pay attention to it. It's in the sense of you will never get it again. That's why it lifts it extra, because if he was alive, he would have played the Joker again. And it wouldn't be a once-in-a-lifetime performance. But because he died, him playing the Joker, the best it's ever been done, is a once-in-a-lifetime experience that you can only see in this movie, and you will only ever see in this movie. You will never see it again. That's why it lifts it as well. His death significantly lifts it, and not in the way people, and I hate when people say, people don't even acknowledge it because he died. No, people don't acknowledge it because he died. They just recognize they'll never get that incredible performance again. Everyone would have agreed it was the greatest Joker performance of all time. Everyone would have seen it that way. But everyone would have been like, we can't wait to see him do it again. And it wouldn't have that dwindling of like, this is it, let's hold on to this because there's never going to happen again. That's the difference.
Yeah.
I don't think his performance is more or less incredible because he died. But I also don't think the film is lost without him. I think that's ridiculous. This film is incredible with or without him, but it's just lifted by him. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I think I think it goes to show though, because when you look at Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, those aren't not incredible movies. They don't have Heath Ledger, and they're still incredible movies. And I think that it would be the same. I mean, that being said as well, though, it's also that I don't think the stories, I mean, as great as they are in Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, I don't think they're quite as strong as the storyline of The Dark Knight, which I think was written so well. So even without Heath Ledger, this would still be the best one, I think.
And that doesn't just involve the Joker storyline. Harvey Dent's storyline in this is, to me, the second best part of the movie. It's so fucking good.
Yeah.
And it barely has anything to do with the Joker. And sometimes when I watch, I'm like, that's probably my favorite part of the movie, to be honest. Is when I think about it sometimes, like the Harvey Dent stuff. Harvey's first scene in the courtroom, and he goes to get shot, and he's just like, yeah, it's just fucking awesome. Like, Harvey Dent's storyline's incredible, and his whole turn, that whole development is amazing. Batman stuff, he just gets to be Batman. There's no, having a Batman Begins and how he becomes it. He just gets to be Batman. He gets to play Bruce Wayne and fit in amongst and how what the Joker pulls from Batman and how his presence affects the universe of the mob having to be underground and Harvey Dent having to take that fall and the Joker, how he really doesn't actually want to beat Batman. He just wants to play a game with Batman at the expense of the lives of everyone else around them by saying he's like, I want to catch Batman. But he doesn't actually want to catch Batman because when a guy was actually going to come out and admit he knew who Batman was, Joker said he doesn't want that to happen and he wants everyone to kill that guy. Like, there's just so much intricacy to all the characters and how they overlap with Harvey's storyline of fighting crime and Batman trying to find the balance of being, the line of I'm the hero that Gotham deserves but not the one it needs right now. He knows that Batman's not forever because they need real people like Harvey, and what's Batman's role to play in that? He knows he needs to be there to do certain things because Gotham deserves that. But he knows he doesn't necessarily need to be the face anymore, or at all. He needs to be that Dark Knight that is in the shadows that isn't seen or known about. Like, there's so much intricacy to it. It's
so well. And the way that all the stories overlap and the character motivations are nailed perfectly, and how that sort of supports the narrative as well. Like, the way the narrative it pushes on is in a lot of ways due to the Joker's motivations and how he influences Harvey Dent. I think that's brilliant, the way that they do that. Like, the way he turns Harvey Dent to prove that anyone can be pushed to madness, which is what he was also trying to do to Batman, which is Joker's goal. That's what he wants to do. That's always what he wants to do in the comics, and that's done so well. And then that pushes on the narrative, and then you've obviously got Batman's conflict with that, and I think it's all just done so fucking well. And you've obviously got the stories with Gordon in there as well. That's done really well in all of his little pieces. It's just so well made.
The only shame with it was we never got to see the follow-up of where they really got to test... Joker got to test him going to madness. Because they set it up with, Batman having to take the fall for killing Harvey, right? Because Batman knew that was the right thing to do. But what the Joker could have done with that to Batman is so tremendous to think about.
I know.
It's just a shame we never got to really delve into that with Heath Ledger's Joker.
It really is.
It'll always be a shame, but again, it's why this movie's so special as well, because it's once in a lifetime. In a lifetime.
Yeah.
George Deegan said, compare this masterpiece of a movie to other renditions of Batman. We kind of have.
Yeah.
But what do you think? Let's compare it to the other best Batman portrayals, which is the animated version.
Sure.
And what do you think? Yeah, the Arkham games are good, but I just mean it's kind of the same guy playing Batman. You know what I mean? It's the same. What's the guy's name? I always forget.
Kevin Conroy.
Compare him to Christian Bale. Like, how do you see that? Because they're the two best. I think we can all agree they're the two probably best portrayals of Batman for sure.
Yeah, I think they exist very well separately on their own. I think they both because Christopher Nolan's Batman movies are always they're not trying to be the comic books. They're not trying to be what the MCU is or what the DCU was doing, which is adapting comic books to screen. It was really reinventing Batman's universe and doing it in his own way, creating its own unique universe, like its own feel and everything. So I think that Kevin Conroy's Batman and Christian Bale's Batman are both, to me, they're probably both equally as good. I think they nail it the same, but they just exist separately on their own very well. And I think that's probably the same with the Joker. Like, Heath Ledger's Joker is probably equally as good as Mark Hamill's Joker, but they're just different, and they're so well done different. It's not like, the comic book Spider-Man and then the MCU Spider-Man in the way they're different. It's very different. It's a different kind of different. What the fuck am I saying? You know what I fucking mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
What do you think?
I don't have as much of an opinion on it. I'm not a big animated watcher. I did as a kid. I used to watch all those, and I always loved him.
Yeah.
Just to the tone, but it was just like he was a different sort of Bruce Wayne. Very different, like you said, exists very nice separately. But I always really liked Kevin Conroy as Bruce Wayne because he always was like the hero. He always was it's just what a voice he has. Like it's just like you know that's Batman. You know that's Bruce Wayne. But it's just done such a different way with Christian Bale, and I just kind of love, in terms of looking at the source material, like Batman's my favorite superhero. I hate everyone else in DC, and I love everything in Marvel. But Batman is just my number one, always was. Ever since I was a kid, it was always Batman.
Yeah.
It was always Batman.
Yeah. Batman's
so, yeah, I love it.
And The Dark Knight does it great. The Arkham games and the animated do it great. And, yeah, I like them both a lot.
Yeah. One of the other questions or comments is from S-Jaws. So this might be a bit of an unpopular take, I think, but I don't think this movie was so incredibly good because of Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. Don't get me wrong, his performance was fantastic and perhaps the best in the movie, but I feel like it only enhanced his character, while the writing was what made him in this movie so special. What are you guys' thoughts on it?
That's the thing. I think Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker it's my favorite performance in any movie ever. But I don't think it's solely down to his performance, but then it's not solely down to his writing, like the writing of the character. I think they go hand in hand. I think the writing's important, but I think that Heath Ledger understood the Joker and what he wanted to do with it, and I think a huge part of it is down to him, because you couldn't just put anyone else in the role and it still be as good. It is hugely down to him, but also obviously a huge part of it is the writing as well, and that's done very well. But I think that not only did Heath Ledger take the writing and do his really good performance with it, I think that like you were saying earlier about the actors having a lot of input, I think a lot of the success of his Joker was probably down to his input of the character as well. I think it was perfectly cast in that sense. But I think that a lot of the success probably goes to not just the performance, but also the writing. I don't think the writing should be overlooked just because his performance was so good.
Yeah, but also, I think people misinterpret, and I think S-Jaws has, in the sense of, I think people will be shocked by the freedom of the script that Heath Ledger had. I really do. The writing was great, but it was more of a story structure. In the moment of things that were said was so much just Heath.
Yeah.
So much was improv. Like, when he blows up the hospital and he, fucks up the button and then hits it, that was improv in the moment. He had one take to do it, and that was improv. So, there's a middle ground to what you're saying, because there's people saying, it was just Heath Ledger's performance that made it, and now you're saying, as much as Heath Ledger was great and he was probably the best part of the movie, it was the writing that really should get the credit. It's in the middle there. Yeah, the writing should get the credit, but fucking hell. I think you're understating how much Heath Ledger really was the reason that the Joker was the Joker, including what he said and did.
Yeah, I think they're both. I think you need both for this performance and for the character to have come out as well as it did in the movie. I think you needed Heath Ledger and you needed Christopher Nolan. I don't think one or the other. I don't think it would have come out, to the same quality that we got it, because I think they go hand in hand. Because you needed that really well done story structure, making sure the character motivations were there properly and the narrative flowed in a certain way. But then you also need Heath Ledger with his input, his performance, and the way he interpreted the character so well for it to have done as well as it did. So I think they deserve. I mean, I don't know. I think they both definitely deserve credit. That I think they go well together.
Yeah, I gotta say, of all the Cinema Room episodes we've done, which is only 6 of them, but I just mean, we've been able to talk about some new stuff, Captain Marvel, Kingdom Hearts 3, but even talking about older movies, we spend a lot of time breaking down what they mean and stuff. It's really nice to talk about something that is, as much as I love talking about Iron Man in the first episode and Captain America, the First Avenger, we get to talk about the MCU and what it means to that. This, to me, is bigger than that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
talking about this, we're talking about one of the greatest movies of all time. Not just, and the best superhero movie of all time, up until this point. This is one of the all-time great movies.
Yeah.
Full stop. Nothing to do with superheroes. This is just one of the all-time great movies. And it's cool. I'm like, I'm enjoying this so much. I love talking about this.
It's a great movie as
so
well.
good.
Watching it was great. I fucking loved it. It's a long movie as well. But it
It
doesn't
is
feel
2.5
like it.
hours.
It's another one of those
No.
movies that just doesn't feel... It almost feels too short. Like, you get to the end and you're like, fuck, it's over. Like, it's great. It's such a fucking great movie. It's because you sit through these MCU movies that are all great fun. They're all great to watch. Like, don't get me wrong, I love watching Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Avengers, whatever. They're all great. But when you sit down and watch a movie like The Dark Knight, you sort of really appreciate what it is, because you don't get Christopher Nolan movies, every year. You don't get these movies that are this quality all the time. So it's really nice when you sit down and watch a movie of this quality, and it's just like, this is fucking great.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Something else, man. It's just something else.
It is that.
Next, people in our fucking community, I don't know what this is. They're just... these edgy opinions they've got. Here we go, another one.
Okay.
Furious Coco. So Heath Ledger is commonly hailed as the greatest portrayal of the Joker ever. How far would you agree with that? For me, however great he is, he can't beat Mark Hamill just because of how influential and character-defining that portrayal is, whether it's the animated series or Arkham games.
Yeah, look, I think that's the thing, though, because I think Mark Hamill's performance as the Joker, he's done it for so long, and he's done it so perfectly, that it is then difficult to adapt, what they've done so successfully in the cartoons.
It's not even the same
everything.
Joker, though, don't you think?
No, that's what I'm trying to say. So it's difficult then to go, well, how do you then take the performance that everyone knows so well with Mark Hamill and do that in a movie? And it's like, well, you don't do that in a movie. You make the character something else, and you do it perfectly in that way. And I think that's what Heath Ledger does. I think that's why people say he's their favourite. Because to me, it's difficult, because I'm like, do I prefer Heath Ledger or do I prefer Mark Hamill? Well, they're so different, I don't know. It's difficult to say. It depends what day. It depends, am I watching The Dark Knight or am I playing the Arkham games? It depends which I'm doing to which I prefer, because they're so different.
Yeah, and I think the reason they're so different, again, comes down to context of all these Batman portrayals and Joker portrayals and Batman movies and TV shows, is that these animated ones are an animated comic book based true to the source material universe that has a million episodes of TV shows built, a million different movies built around all that. It's its own thing. And then all these movies try to do their own little take on it. What Christopher Nolan did, like we said at the start, is a realistic, true to the world we live in portrayal of this dark storyline where a world's so corrupted that we need a superhero to save it in the most real way possible. What would a Joker look like? A person that's goal is to turn everyone into madness and prove that to the world and play games with everyone. What would the character that does that look like in the real world? That doesn't even make sense. That's nothing real about it. Do you know what I mean? But somehow Heath Ledger did it in such a way that it was so believable. So believable, it's hard to believe that what you're watching wasn't real.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that, ever.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In anything, there's nothing like that. And Mark Hamill's performance, as good as it is, in everything he's ever done with it, will never and has never reached that. It just hasn't.
But it's also not trying to either.
It's not trying to. But what do people prefer? I think most people prefer to be awestruck. You know what I mean? And people are just awestruck with the believability of Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing like it, and there'll never be anything like it again.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I understand that.
Because I don't want to have to compare the two, because I love them in very different ways. Like, I think Mark Hamill's Joker is the perfect comic book Joker. It's the perfect adaptation of the Joker straight from the source material to screen that we've ever seen. Whether that be in cartoons, whether that be in the video games, it's perfect in that sense. But then Heath Ledger's is the perfect Joker for what they were trying to do. And they're perfect in what they're doing, because they're so different. Because the Dark Knight trilogy isn't isn't trying to adapt the source material and bring comics to live action. It's trying to create its own Batman universe with these 3 movies, with its own Batman and its own Joker, and so that is done so perfectly well. And I think that's why Heath Ledger's performance, like you said, is so good, because it's so well done, how it feels so convincing and feels like this is the Joker in the real world. It's not just taking Mark Hamill's Joker and putting it on screen, it's creating the Joker that would exist in our world. And I think that's why people love the performance so much, because it's, that is difficult to accomplish, and they did it perfectly. But I love both. I love both performances. They both suit their own universes exactly as they're meant to. So I don't think I could say which one I prefer. I think it's very difficult for me personally, because I love both.
Yeah, and I agree that Mark Hamill as the Joker is incredible, no doubt about it. And always good, always love it. It's just not what I can easily say it's not what I prefer. What I prefer is what Christopher Nolan did. That's what I would want. I didn't know that's what I wanted out of superhero movies, but that's the best thing a superhero movie could have done. But also, I don't think you could do it with any other superhero. Batman's the only one. Yeah, I think Batman's the only one. So there's so much context to this, but yeah. Yeah, it's difficult
Yeah, that's fair.
We have a couple more community questions. Rick says top 5 Joker scenes, but that's
there aren't 5,
kind of really breaking it down. There's like 6.
Yeah, okay.
But so let's just say, what's your favorite Joker scene?
Ooh,
what's your favorite Joker scene?
Fuck me. I love the one at the party when he shows up. Yes. I really love that scene. I think it's...
Why is it that you love that? Because that's my favorite too. Why is it that you love it?
So I think, for one, it's because it's the second time he tells the story of how he got the scars.
Yes, that's exactly why, James. Yeah. I love it.
And so it's that moment of, if you're not for 2 reasons. So for one, if you're not a Batman fan and you're watching that scene, you realise, oh, so that's not actually how he got his scars, and you're sort of realising there's layers to the Joker, and he's making these things up, which makes you realise, if you've never seen this character before and you don't get him, you realise just how fucking crazy he is, because you can't believe anything that he says. And if you are a Batman fan, when you get to that scene, you realise, oh shit, they've nailed it, and this is the Joker in this universe.
That's when you know, because you're seeing him and he walks in, and the first thing you see with the Joker, and he does like the magic. Well, obviously the opening robbery scene and stuff's crazy, but like when you really see him being the Joker, like, and talking and interacting, and he walks in, he does that magic trick with the fucking pencil and just breaks the guy's head, like, and he really starts to play around. You're like, oh wow, this is how cool, how compelling of a performance.
Yeah.
And then you have that first scene where he talks about how he got the scars, and you're kind of sitting there like, I guess you tell the backstory of the Joker. It felt unnecessary, but I guess you want to tell us the backstory. You didn't need to do that, but that's weird. But whatever. You kind of sit there like that. But when you get to that fucking party scene, and all of a sudden you've got all the characters converge. You've got Rachel and Harvey Dent, Batman, Bruce Wayne, and the Joker. They all converge on that night. So it's a big moment of all the storylines that meet in that moment. But when the Joker says, do you want to know how I got these scars? And you're sitting there like, here we go, we're going to hear the story again. And then he drops a different story. You're like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah, that's the moment.
Oh my God, he's lying. That first time, it was bullshit. You don't know how he got the scar. That's when you know that's it.
Yeah.
This is the best.
And it's not
this is it.
It's not just that he's telling a different story each time. It's that they're all convincing as well. Like, each story, you feel he's got emotion behind it. And, like, he knows this. Like, this is what happened in his head. Like, he can just make it up at any time, but he believes it, like, himself, because they're, like, it's obviously partly the writing, but also Heath Ledger's performance, he makes it feel like that's the true story. Even when you know after that scene, you're like, oh, that's not true. It's not a true story, but it feels like it is. And it's done so well. It's a brilliant scene.
Yeah, that's my favourite Joker scene for that moment, because that's the moment. That's the moment. You know, this is everything. This performance is the performance of the character, you know?
Yeah.
It's fuck. It's so good.
It's brilliant.
It's so ridiculously good. It's too good. It annoys me.
It shouldn't exist.
It shouldn't exist. It's too good. We don't deserve it. The world didn't deserve it.
But we have it.
We have it. Thank God. We have one from Mark, who said, thoughts on how The Dark Knight developed upon its prequel, Batman Begins? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, that is an interesting question. I've never really thought about that much, because it's difficult, because I think that For one, The Dark Knight Rises feels a little bit disconnected simply because I'm pretty certain they wanted the next movie to be another... They wanted to bring the Joker in again. They set up a lot of things in The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises feels like it sort of came out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, he's sort of telling a new story, and it's like, yeah,
it was plan B. Dark Knight Rises was a great plan B, you know?
Yeah, and
but it wasn't plan A.
I think that Batman Begins also feels a bit disconnected, in the sense that I think The Dark Knight, settled into exactly what he wanted to do. Like, Christopher Nolan sort of figured it out. He's like, okay, this is what we want to do. This is what worked right. I think that the Batman Begins, it's a great movie, and it's, you know, obviously it's a Christopher Nolan movie, so of course it's a great movie. But I think it maybe at some points has a lot of tropes of superhero origin movies that you see in a lot of superhero movies. Whereas The Dark Knight doesn't have those. It sort of just is a Christopher Nolan Batman movie. Whereas I think that Batman Begins maybe had a few slow points. It's still such a fucking good movie, though. I just think that it felt more like a typical superhero movie than The Dark Knight does. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. I think it's partly because, again, Batman Begins, it's the first one. You have so much you got to accomplish with Bruce Wayne and becoming Batman and all that sort of stuff. But it set the tone as well, and I think The Dark Knight
as well in terms of character.
For sure. And I think The Dark Knight just developed well in terms of kept that tone going, but went a bit further with it. Like, it did everything that Batman Begins did so well, but went a bit further with it. And that's not just in terms of like a storyline, but as a sequel, developed tone really well, developed the universe a bit, you know, really well. And cinematically, the way Christopher Nolan directs a Batman movie, it developed that way really well, which you don't see that often with superhero movies. You don't notice it that much. But when you've got a director as masterful as Christopher Nolan, you notice it more. Yeah, and he improves more, and he really knows what he's doing. Like, I think it developed more technically as a film sequel than most other sequels to superhero movies, than anything else, and even more than it did in a story way. I think technically it developed more than it developed as a story, because I think it in a lot of general ways. I mean, it followed up things you needed to follow up. Scarecrow was in the movie at the start. You know, there were elements that connected him, obviously story wise, but it's kind of its own story of Batman on its own. It's more what connects it and follows up is more a technical aspect to it. And I think it did a great job doing such a thing. So
I agree.
Those are the community questions. I thought we could kind of highlight a few great scenes breaking down the movie. I've written out every scene for scene pretty much, but we won't go through all of them. I just kind of want to touch on some of the best ones, but in chronological order. Obviously, I want to sit on. We talked a lot about in the Inglourious Bastards cinema room how important that opening scene was, and how Tarantino just nails opening sequences. This was one of the all-time best opening sequences as well. What it did with the Joker's, a 10-15 minute robbery scene of these guys dressed in clown masks, and you know, in that moment you can tell they're all hired by the Joker to do this bank robbery, and then it's revealed that one of them the whole time, and they're all killing each other one by one when the task is done, and then you slowly through this cycle, one of them starts to pick up on the fact that I bet the boss asked you to kill me, well, blah 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 blah. And then you realise like the last one was the Joker anyway. He wanted to kill all the people he hired along the way while still getting everything he wanted. And it shows it's just a very compelling scene as is the bank robbery, and then you can tell, oh, this is pretty hectic with them killing each other. Like, shit, this is some serious shit. Whoever this boss is, the Joker is pretty fucked up. But then when you realise it's the Joker there doing it himself, and you see him really talk and you see what it looks like, it's the perfect setup that doesn't give you too much Joker, but everything you need to know to begin with to be like, okay, this is what we're dealing with. Okay, this is the tone of the movie. Okay, wow, how compelling. You know? Not too much. It wasn't too much. It was just right. Yeah,
I think it's done well. And it also sets up for later on, like, obviously he's taking the money for a reason as well, like, and then that gets followed up later on, where it's like, he didn't... The only reason he robbed this bank and killed all of, like, the guys that he was doing it with and then stole the money is because he wants to cause havoc. It's not because he wanted the money and he wanted the bigger share or whatever. it's because he wanted to just fuck everything up. That's his purpose. And I think that that opening scene sets that up as well, because you just see him killing, all the guys that he's hired to do this with. And I love the opening scene. I think it's brilliant, and it perfectly gets you straight into the movie as well.
Billy, the team talking about Captain Robertson, he had a comment that related to this opening scene that I want to talk about. He said, "I don't really have any question to add, rather a fun, useless fact. In the opening of the movie, the shot where it's Joker's back to the camera and the camera zooms in on the mask before he hops in the car for the robbery, you can see the poster for Spider-Man 3 in the background, which means in this universe Marvel exists, and so does the Spider-Man trilogy." Anyways, that's all I got to add. The movie's fucking brilliant, and all the people that say it's only good because of Heath Ledger died are wrong. All the actors are brilliant and amazingly cast, while I prefer Begins more, this is still a brilliant Batman film.
Well,
that's
you're
an interesting
wrong.
take.
That's mentally
That's a hot take.
But
everything else,
you
everything
got
else
the
you
Sam
said,
Raimi Spider-Man movies into this episode of the Cinema Room. Thank you for that one, Billy.
Of course, fucking stupid Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
Oh, let's do one on Spider-Man 2. That'd be great.
I'd rather kill myself.
I'd rather do it, to be honest. But
I'd rather do it than kill myself. Would you?
Yeah. Plot twist. I'd rather do the podcast on Spider-Man 2 than kill myself.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah, you know what? I think you're right.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the start of the movie as well. Like when it comes to the opening scenes, the first three scenes for the three main characters of this movie, which is Joker, Batman, Harvey Dent. The first Batman scene we see, and this is in terms of one of Mark's question earlier about being a great follow-up to Batman Begins, is Batman's presence in and how he's affected Gotham and the universe over the last several years that he's now been Batman. You see Scarecrow and his crew meeting up in private at night secretly to do an arms deal. Mm-hmm. And you see all these different Batmen show up, but it's just like police dressed in Batman. So it's like a squad of police that are like here to break up.
Are they police? I thought they were just regular blokes that were trying to be Batman.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if they were like a police group that would dress as Batman. That was like their thing. But yeah, I'm never sure 100%.
I always just thought they were guys.
Because they had really,
they had a lot of
like
body
SWAT
armor
gear.
and they had a lot of guns and shit. Well, this is America and it's Gotham, so
yeah, I guess so. Sure. But then Batman actually shows up and does kick some ass, but you see the impact that he's then having on the mob, that they're all fucking frightened the Batman's going to show up, but then it's also the impact he's having on regular people that'll, one guy goes, "What gives you the right? Why are you different to us?" "I'm not wearing hockey pants." Like that scene, that line happens and it's like, oh, okay, he is, he's different and it's fucking Batman. And then you cut to the next scene in the courtroom where Harvey Dent is just destroying the mob in Gotham, like putting them, not just like beating him up and, catching him, but also putting him behind bars. Because in a realistic world, sure, the superhero catches a villain, they go arrested. That's not, in real life, there's so much legal bullshit and all these in real life, a rich fucking mobster, like, would have great lawyers, they'd pay off people, the corruption would see through, and they'd fucking get a year in prison, and then they'd be out. Like, all that sort of bullshit we see in the real world of corruption. But in this one, you got this character, Harvey Dent, that's just is superhero in his own right, smashing these people behind bars. And you just get this great character and the whole relationship he has with Rachel and what he's doing, and he's a badass too. He's a real popular hero and everyone in Gotham loves him. And you have that moment where they try to assassinate him and shoot him and the gun doesn't work. And he's just like, if you want to kill me, buy American, and he throws it down on the bench. And everyone just stands up and applauds and laughs and stuff. And he's just like, I'm the man. It's like, you are the man. Yeah. That opening scene for Harvey is so important too. And I think that whole character arc is so underrated in this movie as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. That's all done very well. I love... Yeah, I don't really know what else to say on that, to be honest. Yeah, great stuff.
Then we start to see, like, the Joker, start to infiltrate the underground and, bring up his plans. He's like how he can help them and why he can help them, and he's really breaking them all down. And obviously some people are kind of on board with it, like, oh, this could be good, and others are like, fuck, that one guy's like, 50 grand, whoever brings me this guy's head or whatever it is, or and then you've got the dude in Hong Kong, and he's just like, that guy's, you're giving that guy looking after your money, that guy's a squealer. Like, I know a squealer when I see one, like, and you're kind of like, fuck, this is so badass. And then obviously Batman goes and fucking catches him, which in itself, that whole infiltration scene is such a great Batman scene of just like, it's as much as it's a dark, gritty sort of Batman story with the Joker being the Joker, but also you get to see Batman do Batman shit, which is, he's a fucking billionaire with all this gear, and you get to see like an action movie where there's, you get infiltrated the building. Like, I love that whole section to see Batman do Batman shit.
Yeah, that's great. That is a really good moment. I also love the sort of... this is the thing I noticed, going back to that whole difference between Begins and The Dark Knight. In The Dark Knight, there's a lot of scenes where you get a lot of wide shots of, like, the city and, like, Batman gliding through the city. I don't remember that so much in Batman Begins. It all felt very close.
Yeah, that's interesting. I do agree with that.
I quite like... And that's something you get to see in that scene when he's doing the infiltration and everything, and and you get to see him fighting everybody, and you see him doing the jumping off the building and all that shit. Looks great. And it's a great sequence. I like it a lot.
Yeah. And obviously following that whole Hong Kong thing is like the actual Harvey Dent's like event that Bruce puts on, and we've already talked about the scenes with the way the Joker tells his story about getting caught. We've talked about Bruce and that Harvey Dent event, but also the restaurant scene before that sets that up as well with Bruce. But we see one of the big storylines we didn't really touch on is Gordon's as well, because he dies kind of face on death to be undercover, to kind of be able to catch the Joker, who's really starting to make his presence known, saying he wants to the Batman reveal, and he's just killing these innocent people just for sport, because he, again, causing chaos and just to fuck with people. How do you feel about Gordon's whole storyline and his involvement? He in obviously becoming the commissioner by the end.
Yeah, I like all that stuff. I think it's done well. I like Gordon's story. I think it's true to Gordon, his character from the comics and everything. I think that's all done well. I'm not really sure what else to say about it, to be honest. I think
just Gary Oldman's the fucking man.
Yeah,
just good.
Just does a great job. It's a great little sort of subplot that they have going on there that directly then ties into the end of the movie as well, with his family and everything. And
yeah, one of the big scenes, and this goes to a question I have for you about two characters or a relationship in particular.
Okay.
Once the Joker's arrested, so Harvey Dent reveals himself to be the Batman so that he gets arrested, because they're waiting for Batman to reveal himself, and Bruce was going to do it, but Harvey's like, no, we need... As Bruce is in the mindset of, we need Harvey more than... Gotham needs Harvey more than they need Batman, and Harvey's of the mindset is like, no, look, I'm great, but Batman is a symbol, and we always need Batman, so I'll take the fall here. So Harvey took so they're both like, I love that kind of opposing view of each other and how they viewed each other with such high regard. Harvey says he's the Batman. The whole chase sequence with the Joker trying to catch the transport car and everything, that's fucking amazing. And then the Batman fight and everything, that's great. But it sets up to the Joker interrogation. The Joker ends up getting caught very purposefully. And then we find out that he's actually, set so much up, including a bomb for his own escape, like the fucking anthrax to kill the commissioner at the time and all these other targets he's picked, as well as capturing Harvey and Rachel. And that whole like choose sequence, and obviously they send separate people separate ways, and him knowing only Batman could get there in time, and he would pick Rachel, and then it would be Harvey. Like, it was all a trick.
Yeah.
But with Rachel as a character, what did you think overall, obviously not just of her relationship with like Harvey, but like with Batman and what it did to Bruce Wayne, and like how that her life and death affected that character in this whole universe?
Yeah, you know what?
And why is that different to maybe other portrayals of Batman as well? Because it was a deeper layer to the whole character.
Yeah,
because
there was the whole, like, but sort of like she said, not to make her his one hope for a normal life. And that's sort of what he did. I don't know. Like, I don't think he wanted to stop being Batman, but I think he liked having that option there, maybe, possibly. And
yeah.
It's a difficult one because it's not the central focus of the movie. So it's sort of a little bit in the background, but it does affect, the characters quite a bit, and Bruce or Batman's, his motivations and what he'd do, and also the way that the Joker knew that that's what he'd do. Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you're right. With everything you said, I think it was just that person that he had that made him Bruce Wayne, like the real Bruce Wayne, the before Batman Bruce Wayne. Because she was always in his life, and Alfred was that sense, but Alfred's kind of along with the ride for the Batman stuff. So I always saw Rachel was like his true north, his groundedness, the only thing left of his past before Batman. And once she died, that part of him was gone for good. And I think that was just a really interesting part of what led to his story arc in The Dark Knight Rises being so good. As much as the whole thing wasn't supposed to be necessarily what it was, it made so much more sense of how he ended so perfectly, as much as people think it was more of a Bruce Wayne movie than a Batman movie in The Dark Knight Rises. I'm like, yeah, but it had to be because of what he went through in The Dark Knight. Because of the Bruce Wayne before Batman died, you only had Batman and then the facade of Bruce Wayne left. So he just kind of gave up on that, and I think it full circled his storyline, because I think they nailed everything with Bruce and Batman from all three movies, from the start of Begins to the end of The Dark Knight Rises. It was a perfect arc to me. As much as people talk shit about The Dark Knight Rises for that, I totally disagree. I think it was a perfect arc, and Rachel was a key pillar to that from beginning to the end.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I guess the last main scene, obviously we see the boat scene, Joker's master plan of getting a boat full of prisoners and a boat full of civilians, giving each a bomb to the other one to test them, and neither of them do it, and he loses. But then you kind of get the vibe of the Joker's like, I don't want to beat you, I want to do this is too much fun, I want to do this forever.
Yeah. Which is very in keeping with the Joker. It's a great scene.
Yeah.
And there's that line, what does he say? I've forgotten it, but it sounds very similar to the line from the comics, from the Killing Joke, I think it is, which is madness is everyone's always a step away from madness sort of thing, which is sort of what he says. He says something like it only takes a little push or something when he's talking about Dent in The Dark Knight. And that's sort of his sort of backup plan was always, well, this main plan didn't work, but he sort of proved his point because he's pushed Dent to madness and sort of pushed this, Gotham's White Knight to, like he said, brought him down to our level, which was good. So in a sense, the Joker won in a way. Yeah,
of course. Batman was defeated because of what happened with Harvey Dent. Yeah, the Joker won.
Yeah, which
in
is
this
how
movie,
it should
no doubt
be.
about it.
Which is how it should be, because although the Joker doesn't win in the sense of he saves Gotham from the Joker, puts him behind bars, he wins in terms of his inner conflict that he has with Batman, which is really how the Joker should be.
And that's what the Joker wanted. The Joker won in the way he wanted to win.
Yeah.
Not in the way Batman won in the way he thought he wanted to win. But he lost so much in the process. It's it's like Thanos Infinity War. It's like Thanos did what he wanted, but what did it cost? It cost a lot. It cost a lot to accomplish the goal. And yeah, Batman saved Gotham from the Joker, but the Joker got what he wanted, and it cost Batman Rachel. It cost Gotham Harvey Dent. It cost Gotham Batman for 8 years.
Yeah.
There's a huge time gap between The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. And, it costs so much. And And then you get that final scene with Harvey Dent, with Gordon's family, and you see him driven to madness, and he's no longer Harvey Dent, he's Two-Face.
Yeah.
And that whole development of and this is the thing, they didn't overdo it. Harvey Dent dies at the end of this. There's no Two-Face. They didn't set up Two-Face to be the villain in the future. They're just he becomes Two-Face at the end, and that's it. They didn't overdo it. They didn't try to make it some big franchise thing where, it's ongoing. It's no, this is what would really happen if there was Two-Face. He's not a guy that's going to live forever with half-burnt body. He was a guy that was only going to live for a little while. Look at the fucking burns he had to his face. But it was just
fucked.
He was fucked. He was on borrowed time as it was. But he was driven to madness, and, he was going to murder Gordon's whole fucking family. And he murdered a whole bunch of other people as well in the process. He did crazy shit. And I loved that full circle arc, man. All of these arcs. Like you said, the Joker won in the way he wanted to win. Exactly how it should be with the Joker. Batman lost Rachel. He lost all his past, the Bruce Wayne. He now is just what he is now, and which drove him to lose himself altogether because he's not sure what he wants, or he's not sure what future there is, which leads into then the next movie. Then you've got Harvey Dent, who was meant so much to Gotham as the White Knight, but also what he did putting all the criminals behind bars. And, that secret that, they had to keep to protect, Harvey's legacy of being a good guy, and Gordon and him and his family had to hold on to that. And Batman, like Batman said, drove that line home of, I'm the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs. They need Harvey Dent. So I will take the hit. Everyone can hate me so that they can love Harvey and what Harvey did to those criminals, and which then comes back again in The Dark Knight Rises, and Bane uses that to, that lie and reveals it to the world.
Yeah.
So it's everything, all these three main character storylines, 4 if you include Gordon, 5 if you include Rachel, all these impact and ran off so perfectly and then impact the following movie.
Yeah. And it's great. It's done so fucking great. And the movie goes out in a great way. That final scene with Gordon's speech about what Batman means and what Batman will be and everything is great. It's great. It really finishes off the movie well.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's it for the breakdown, I think. I don't think there's anything else. Unless you want to add something?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered that well. I think that was good.
Nice. Lovely
episode of the Cinema Room.
What a great fucking podcast. What brilliant guys we are.
Yeah, I know. Fantastic. Just the best podcast. The very best.
Oh, God. All right. Do you want to wrap this up then, James?
We can do. All right. Thanks, everyone, so much for listening to episode 6. 5? 6.
6. Yes, 6.
Wait, no.
Yeah, it's been 6.
What was the last one? Oh, Captain Marvel was 5. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, episode 6 of the Cinema Room podcast. We really do appreciate you listening. If you're listening on YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, like Tyler said at the beginning, you could have gotten this a whole week earlier if you were just pledging $1 or more to patreon.com/asalways, where you get access to the Cinema Room a week early, as well as exclusive access to the Kill Connor Clubhouse podcast every week the Kill Connor Club isn't on, and that's just $1. Obviously more if you want extra things, but go and check us out. To support us. It'd mean a lot and would help us out. And we'd appreciate you. So to thank a few of you sweet vintage lads, we obviously have our Patreon producers, King Richard III, Ikraik, Seth, and Josh Devillier, as well as everyone else. We've got Ballsack47, Damian, Billy the Team Tynamite Captain Robertson, Tman or Travis, Casey Wood, Tony the Tarbiter's Pasty, Denis, Adam Sundling, Alfie Rowsell, Jamie the Gamer, Smexy Dork, Lumistrad, Mario5380, Hook Still Holds Up, Viridian, Pink Flame 313, ArunWyn, Ollie the Dane, Fat Fuck Cuck, Nawaf M, Brendon BQ Overlord, Ravjai, Julie, Prudhvi Muvva, Oscar, Benedict Parker Returns, James and Lad, Connor Durose Bully in the Alley, Zahir, Gene, Zeke Collins, Son of a Bitch Ogeaidogo, Lauren is here too, Dammit Glenn, Furious Coco, the ACMJS, Delta Rodriguez, Kyle, S. Jaws, Kyle Marvel, Marcus Blackburn, Emil Katborg, Joshua Mora, David Bindis, Ginko Swag, Kimo Sabe Gamer, Yazen, Joe the Sexy Boi Smith, Elsico91, Joe, A.K.A FoundedScarab, HBars12, I Got Lumbago, The Real Joraptor, Omar Karasagi, Alfie Robert, Brian Ford Shields, Fishy, Andrew Martinez, and Lewis the Gamer McLean. Thank you all so much for making that list longer than it really needs to be. But we appreciate all of your money, and if only the list were longer, we'd both be a lot happier as well. But thank you all so much for your continued support, and like I said, just $1, patreon.com/AsAlways. You can get it a week early. But thank you to everyone listening on other platforms as well. Don't forget to give us a like on YouTube, rate us on Spotify, and whatever. I don't fucking know what you can do on those platforms, but do the good thing. Do the good thing. Give us a 5 stars and like us and follow us and whatever you can do on the audio platforms. But that's it for this episode of the Cinema Room. We'll see you in a week for whatever the fuck podcast comes out in a week's time. I don't know.
Yeah, depending on who you are. If you're a patron, it'll be Clubhouse next week. If you're not a patron, it'll be Kill Connor Club.
No, it won't.
So yeah.
What? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, yeah, sorry. Yeah. Fucking
make me
hell,
doubt
I'm
myself.
sorry. I fucking hate this. No, I love
Yeah.
it. Thank you all so much. Okay. We'll see you all next time, boys. Goodbye.
Bye.